Oh, hi there. Are you looking for a cozy, heartfelt story to read on a fine spring day? Are you in need of an inspiring book that gives you a real thirst for life? Well, you're not gonna find it here because this book is a bloody gore fest. I don't even know where to begin. It's so twisted and full of... Welcome everybody to another scintillating book talk. I'm on my second energy drink, so I am ready to talk books. I probably should have passed on that second one. I'm pretty sure I'm seeing noises. Truth be told, I'm not allowed to have caffeine after 10 because apparently midnight dance-offs have a high casualty rate. Who would have thought? Okay. Let's put all this energy to good use. Now's as good a time as any for a name drop, right, Morgan? Clearly he concurs. Thank you, my friend. And for all you first-time viewers out there, I'm Steven, constant reader, librarian at Cinco Ranch Branch in Katy, and man seen here enjoying his new padded room. You know, I gotta say, that straitjacket really brings out the whites in my eyes. So some of you may recall, in an earlier book talk, I discussed the first entry in the frighteningly fantastic Monstrumologist series. A throwback Gothic-style horror tale that's packed to the gills with murder, immorality, and monsters so terrifying that Dracula himself would cross the street to avoid them. And if you haven't seen it, I recommend you go back and watch that episode, because I don't want to bore you with recapping everything that happened in book 1. I wonder if I can get Morgan to include a link in the description below. Maybe if I slipped him a C note. All kidding aside, I had a lot of fun talking about the Monstrumologist. It was a good discussion, and I think you enjoyed it as well. That's why for today's book talk, I'll be regaling you with more tales of monster sleuthing and bloody mayhem in the chilling sequel titled The Curse of the Wendigo, a richly layered marvel of fiction where science battles legend, beauty battles repulsion, and genius battles madness. And so begins a new and terrifying adventure in the saga of Will Henry, assistant monstrumologist, and the brilliant but callous Dr. Pellinor Warthrop, as they once again face terrors that can only be found in the darkest of nightmares. Miami author Richard Yancey, seen here posing for a Gap ad, doesn't miss a beat in this gripping follow-up to the Monstromologist, combining strong, vibrant characters with a gangbusters plot. This book is so good, I honestly don't feel qualified to talk about it. But we're here now, so I might as well give it the old college try. Set in the late 1880s and told once again through a collection of folios penned by the late William James Henry, Dr. Warthrop is visited by an imposing figure from his past. Warthrop learns that his former BFF, Dr. John Chandler, has gone missing in the bitter cold wilderness of northern Canada. Oh, Canada! Despite his initial reluctance to help, Warthrop and his faithful apprentice, Will Henry, journey to the untamed backwoods of Ontario, where they encounter Jack Fiddler, a native shaman and the last person to see Dr. Chandler alive. While Fiddler puts forward a paranormal scenario for Chandler's disappearance, Warthrop is convinced of a more scientific explanation, despite strong evidence to the contrary. His stubborn commitment to the rationale is contested by his own mentor, Dr. Abram von Hellrung, a riff on Bram Stoker's most famous vampire hunter, you guessed it, Van Helsing. Dr. von Hellrung is about to propose that the Monstrumology Society accept mythological creatures as genuine, much to Warthrop's ardent objection. Once again, Rick Yancey's imagination extends beyond the familiar rogues gallery of vampires and werewolves, enlisting monsters derived from obscure myths and travelogues, including the Mongolian Deathworm, which to me sounds more like a heavy metal band, or something you get from eating Long John Silver's. Shade. The principal malefactor stalking the pages of this book is Leptolurconus, as they say in Latin, more commonly known as the Wendigo, a demonic creature that, quote, starves even as it gorges. Those of you who've ever sat around a campfire exchanging ghost stories might already be familiar with the Wendigo, which the Algonquin tribes believed to possess humans and turn them into cannibals. Yeah, but a little less sophisticated. Dr. Warthrop's deeply held beliefs are called into question when the Wendigo leaves a trail of carnage and tragedy in its wake, both in Canada and the splendorous third world filth of industrial era New York City. New York City! Desperate to save his friend and protect his profession from certain humiliation, Dr. Warthrop and his orphan apprentice will learn the hard way that life is no joke, that's literally the book's underlying message. There's an important element in this novel that's altogether missing from book 1. That's right, female characters. Warthrop's ex-fiancé Muriel dazzles the good doctor with her fabulousness. Best of all, she can go toe-to-toe with his moods and snark without blinking an eye. Turns out, Warthrop's chest cavity isn't as hollow as we thought. Beneath that tortured soul and wretched exterior, the dude's a bit of a heartthrob. And Warthrop's young ward, Will Henry, is compelled to see his guardian in a profoundly new light. As a man who lived and loved once upon a time. Your insides will scream for more passionate scenes between Warthrop and Muriel. Whether you're rewarded with it, well, that's for you to find out. And speaking of romance, young Will Henry is further forced into maturation not only by the sheer nature of what he's seen, but by the show-stopping 13-year-old force of nature, Lily Bates, an aspiring monstrumologist with a stubborn streak that can impress a Missouri mule. She's spunky, and she speaks her mind, often insulting Will Henry, who finds himself both exasperated and drawn to her. Aww, a burgeoning romance. How sweet. If any of you are wary that The Curse of the Wendigo doesn't live up to the previous book, you need not be. Rick Yancey delivers on all fronts. This is high-caliber horror with greater adrenaline rush, greater entourage of supporting characters, and the terror. Good God, the terror in this book is both visceral and personal, and it's every bit as gruesome as its predecessor. Oh, which reminds me. Trigger warning. I feel like I need a trigger warning every time I talk about Rick Yancey's books, but yes, Mr. Yancey wields gore and violence like blunt instruments. But that's not to say they aren't effective. This book strained my limits on horror, and I loved every minute of it. Yeah, that was a bit much. Sorry, I don't know what's wrong with me. Everything. Seriously, fellow readers, if you're squeamish about certain types of graphic violence, then by all means, proceed with caution. Like its predecessor, The Curse of the Wendigo further explores the darker aspects of the human psyche. When does a man become the very monster he hunts? At what point does one become indistinguishable from that of a monster? Some of this novel's characters question the existence of the Wendigo and its ability to turn an otherwise sane person into a bloodthirsty cannibal. But if the Wendigo isn't real, if it's nothing more than a myth, then what does it say about the violent acts perpetrated by those possessed by the Wendigo? Rick Yancey's exquisite writing is poetic and brimming with Victorian decadence. Must have been quite a mosquito bite, because Mr. Yancey scratches that prose itch. Hands down, this is a word lover's book. Impeccable writing aside, let's talk character development. The codependent dumpster fire that is Warthrop and Will Henry's relationship takes further shape between Yancey's elegant prose. There's an overwhelming amount of sadness, loneliness, and emotional restraint between these two. So much that remains unsaid. It's all very nuanced and masterfully depicted. The complexity of their relationship will trigger your tear ducts and send shivers down your spine. One of the central questions posed by this book, and the series as a whole, is whether one can be a monstrumologist and not have it destroy you. Mark my words, the answer to that question will leave you drowning in feels. I know what you're thinking. Things have to get better, right? Surely brighter days are ahead for our characters in Book 3. I can't wait to find out. One last note before we call it a day. Before you read this book, I strongly encourage you to read Algernon Blackwood's short story titled The Wendigo. Written in the year 1910, this story offers a fantastic introduction to the legend. And without giving away any spoilers, those of you who read Blackwood's story first will be treated to a literary Easter egg inside the pages of this book. Whew! Well, I think that about does it for today's book talk. That 2:30 crash is definitely kicking in. Hopefully you enjoyed this discussion of Rick Yancey's The Curse of the Wendigo. If you did enjoy it, give it a thumbs up on your way out. I'll see you next time with a brand new video. Thank you for watching, and as always, stay true to your shelves.